After spending months planning my brother's funeral to honor his memory, his widow stood up at the service and announced, "We're grateful for everyone who actually loved him." My own family turned and glared at me. I sat alone in the back, swallowing my rage. Years later, when she needed help raising his child, I sent back the same silence she gave me that day. Every time I close my eyes, I still hear her voice saying those words like a knife to my chest. Let me go back. My name is Drew. I live just outside Dayton, Ohio. I work HVAC, simple, honest work. I'm not married, no kids. Not because I don't want those things, but because I've spent most of my life picking up pieces. Especially after what happened with my brother, Rick. Rick was 2 years older. He was my best friend growing up. If you had a brother like him, you'll get it. He never let anyone mess with me. When our dad would start yelling, Rick would find a way to get me out of the house. When I got cut from the high school baseball team, Rick bought me ice cream and told me coaches were idiots. When I didn't have enough money to fix my car one winter, Rick took the bus to work for a month so I could drive his truck. That was the kind of brother he was. He met Marla at a networking event in downtown Cincinnati. She worked in real estate, and Rick had just opened his own landscaping business. He said she had ambition, and I guess he liked that. The rest of us were just unsure. She was polite, but cold. She didn't laugh much. Always seemed like she was in a rush to be somewhere more important. Mom said she gave her the wrong kind of feeling, but Rick didn't listen. He thought she was just independent. Maybe he wanted someone different from us. He proposed to her a year later. They got married in 2014. Small ceremony, nothing fancy. I was the best man. Still got the old speech written somewhere. I held back my doubts. Rick was happy, and that was enough. Fast forward to 2019. Rick died in a motorcycle crash. He was heading back from a job site out on I-275 when a storm rolled in. Roads were slick. SUV cut him off. He lost control. That was it. I was the one who got the call. Marla had listed me as his emergency contact for some reason. I went numb. Sat in my truck for over an hour, just staring at the dash. Then I drove straight to the hospital. Marla was already there. She didn't cry. Not one tear. Just stared at her phone like she was waiting for a different message. For the next week, she vanished. Seriously. She didn't answer calls. Didn't meet with the funeral home. Didn't even pick out flowers. My mom was crushed, too grief-stricken to do anything. So I stepped in. I planned everything. I chose the venue, picked out the casket, called his old friends from high school and college, even tracked down Coach Geller from his football days. I made the slideshow, printed the programs, coordinated with the pastor. I paid for most of it out of pocket. About $8,000. Marla said she couldn't afford anything right now. I didn't push her. I figured she was dealing with the loss in her own way. The day of the funeral, the room was packed. Every pew was filled. People lined the walls. That's how much Rick was loved. I sat toward the back so Marla and her family could sit up front. I didn't care about being seen. I just wanted Rick to be honored right. The pastor did his part. Then Marla got up to speak. I expected her to say something heartfelt. Maybe talk about his work ethic or his sense of humor. Maybe thank everyone for being there. Instead, she looked around the room and said, "We're grateful for everyone who actually loved Rick." That's all. Just that. She said it like she was spitting it. And then she sat back down. At first, I thought I misheard. But then I noticed people turning. Like a slow ripple, heads shifted toward me. Toward the back row. My own cousin, Derek, gave me this cold look like I had killed Rick myself. No one said anything out loud. But I could feel it. The mood shifted. I wasn't the grieving brother anymore. I was the outcast. I sat there. Frozen. My chest burned, but I didn't move. Didn't speak. I just clenched my jaw and stared at the floor. Afterward, when people were hugging and crying and sharing memories outside, I tried to walk up to Marla. I was still trying to be civil. She looked right at me and said, "You can go now." No explanation. No emotion. I left. Days passed. Then weeks. I started getting cold shoulders from family. No one returned my calls. My mom, who used to call me every Sunday, suddenly always had an excuse. It was like someone flipped a switch. I tried asking what was going on. No answers. Just awkward silences. It wasn't until about 6 months later that I found out what really happened. Daniel, Rick's old buddy from college, got drunk one night and called me. Said he needed to come clean. He told me that a few days before Rick died, he and Marla had a big fight. Rick had decided to change his will. He wanted to leave some of his savings to me, said I was the only one who ever really helped him when he needed it. Said he didn't fully trust Marla anymore. She overheard a voicemail Rick left for his lawyer. She knew what he was planning. When he died unexpectedly, she lost her chance to stop it formally. But she could still poison the well. She told everyone that Rick found out I'd been manipulating him. Said I only helped him out to get into his will. That I was using him. She rewrote the story. Painted me as a greedy leech. And people believed her. I don't know if it's because she cried harder than me, or because people just wanted a clean villain to blame. But it worked. I didn't fight it. I figured if people wanted to believe the worst about me, they weren't worth fighting for. I moved away. Got a place in Dayton. Started over. For 5 years, I lived in silence. Then one day, last fall, she showed up at my door. I opened it and there she was, Marla. Standing on my porch with a little boy holding her hand. He looked up at me, and I swear to God, I felt like I was staring at a ghost. He had Rick's eyes. Same shape. Same expression. "This is Ryan," she said. "He's your nephew." I didn't say a word. She went on. Said she needed help. Money. Childcare. Said Ryan had asthma and the meds were expensive. That her job cut her hours. That she was behind on rent. Said she had nowhere else to go. I asked what happened to my mom. She hesitated. Then admitted Mom wouldn't talk to her anymore. Said she eventually figured out the truth. Too late, of course. The damage was done. I let them inside. I didn't want to embarrass the kid. Made them some tea, sat them down. Marla looked worn out. Different. But I didn't feel sorry for her. Not after everything. I let her talk. Listened to every word. And when she was done, I asked her one thing: "Why did you lie about me?" She opened her mouth. Then closed it. "You ruined my name," I said. "You turned my family against me. You let me plan every inch of that funeral, then made me the villain in front of everyone." She whispered. I was scared. I didn't know what I was doing. "That's not true," I said. "You knew exactly what you were doing. You wanted control. You didn't want Rick to give anything to anyone but you." She didn't deny it. I looked at the boy. Ryan. I hated that he had to be part of this. He was just a kid. Not his fault. Then I stood up and walked to the door. She followed me with her eyes. Didn't move. She said, "Please. For Rick's son." I stared at her for a long time. Then I said, "We're grateful for everyone who actually loved Rick." I held the door open. She started crying. Not loud. Just this soft, broken noise. I didn't flinch. Eventually, she got up, took Ryan's hand, and walked out. I haven't heard from her since. But the story isn't over yet. After Marla walked out that day, I thought it was over. I thought maybe she'd just vanish again like she did after the funeral. I wouldn't say I felt good about turning her away, but I didn't feel bad either. I felt balanced. Like finally, after all these years, I got to say something that mattered. But about 3 weeks later, I got a knock on my door. It was my cousin June. We hadn't spoken in years. She was one of the people who looked away when I needed her. One of the first to stop inviting me to Thanksgiving. So seeing her on my porch felt like a punch to the gut. She didn't even say hello at first. Just blurted out, "What the hell did you say to her?" I leaned against the door frame. "Say to who?" "Don't play dumb," she said. "Marla. She showed up at my house crying. Said you embarrassed her. Said Ryan saw her break down in the car. Said he's been asking why his uncle hates him." I didn't respond. She stepped closer. "You could have helped her, Drew. You had the money. She's trying to raise Rick's kid all alone." I looked at her and asked, "Did you ever ask me if I needed help? When the whole family turned on me? When no one would even return my texts?" She flinched. "No," I said. "You didn't." I believed her, she admitted. "We all did." "I know," I said. "And none of you ever asked me for my side." June looked down at her feet. "She lied," I said. "She tore me down. Lied about me, at Rick's funeral. To you, to Mom, to everyone." June's voice cracked. "I didn't know. Not back then. I was stupid. We all were." I didn't say anything. She finally asked, "So what now? You just never talk to any of us again?" "Why not?" I said. "You already practiced." She left after that. The part one didn't expect was what happened next. That same night, I got a message from a lawyer's office in Cincinnati. Apparently, Marla had filed for emergency guardianship assistance from the state, and my name came up because I was listed as Rick's next of kin in an old document. Even though Marla had full custody, the courts needed a signature or a formal waiver from me. Something about inheritance potential and medical decisions if something happened to her. At first, I ignored it. But then, 2 days later, I saw a Facebook post. Someone tagged Rick's old business page. It was a fundraiser. Marla had started a GoFundMe for Ryan. The page was full of emotional language talking about how Rick's estranged brother had abandoned the family, how he refused to step in when a child needed him most. The comments were full of people dragging my name. People I hadn't seen or spoken to in years. "She's doing her best. What kind of man turns away his own nephew? Some people only show up for money." It was happening all over again. Same lies, different format. I could have let it go. Could have stayed silent like I did the first time. But something in me snapped. So I called the lawyer. Asked for details. Turns out there was more to it than I realized. Rick had updated part of his will. Just not the part Marla saw. There was a handwritten note, signed and dated a few days before he died. It wasn't a full legal revision, but it was enough to raise questions. He wrote that he wanted Drew to have a role in Ryan's life, and that he was planning to shift guardianship documents soon if anything happened. The lawyer said the note wasn't binding, but it meant something. Then he told me something that changed everything. There's a life insurance policy, $150,000. You're listed as the secondary beneficiary, in case Marla is found unfit or unwilling to care for Ryan. I nearly dropped the phone. Rick had tried to protect me. Even in the end. I didn't say yes to anything yet. I told the lawyer I'd think about it. Then I started digging. If Marla wanted to drag me into this again, I wasn't going in blind. I found out she'd been investigated twice, once for leaving Ryan home alone while she was working night shifts, and once for financial mismanagement. She wasn't abusing the kid, but she wasn't exactly stable either. She had debt. Credit cards in Rick's name that were still active. And the worst part? She never told Ryan anything about me. Not one photo. Not one story. He didn't even know I existed until she dragged him to my front door. I kept thinking about that. About how Rick wanted me in his son's life. About how I walked away, and maybe that kid paid the price. I wasn't sure what to do yet. But I knew one thing: if Marla wanted to keep playing games, she picked the wrong person this time. I wasn't going to stay quiet again. I started building a case. Quietly. I didn't tell anyone at first, not the lawyer, not my mom, not even Daniel. I just started pulling every thread I could find. First, I called the funeral home. Asked for the invoice from Rick's service. They still had it. 8 separate charges, all under my name. $8,264.87. Proof I paid for everything. Next, I went back through my old emails. I found every message between me and Marla from those few weeks after Rick died. Every time she said, "I can't help with that," or "whatever you think is best." She acted like she had no input in the funeral, but later told people I hijacked it. I saved every word. Then I went further. I reached out to Rick's old coworker, Travis. The guy who helped him with landscaping jobs on weekends. Travis told me something that made my stomach twist. He said Rick had confided in him about Marla. Said she was taking money from their joint account and hiding it in a second account under her maiden name. Said she once threatened to take Ryan and leave if Rick didn't stop being so generous with me and our mom. I asked if he had proof. He didn't. But he offered to write a statement. I thanked him and kept digging. Then I found something I wasn't expecting. There was a second GoFundMe. This one wasn't public. But it was tied to an old email Marla used when she sold real estate. Someone had sent me a link anonymously. I almost didn't open it, thought it was spam, but I'm glad I did. She started this one 2 years ago. It said she was a widowed mother fleeing emotional abuse. Said she had escaped a dangerous family situation and needed help starting fresh. She raised nearly $12,000 from strangers. All lies. And it lined up exactly with the time I found out my mom had cut contact with her. I printed everything. Then I did something I wasn't sure I'd ever do. I reached out to CPS. I didn't file a complaint, not yet. I just asked questions. I explained who I was, what I'd discovered, and asked if there had been any recent incidents. They couldn't tell me everything, but the woman on the phone said, "You should talk to the caseworker assigned to Ryan's file. There's history." That was all I needed. I called the lawyer the next day and said, "I want to contest guardianship." He paused. "Are you sure? She dragged my name for years. She poisoned my family. And now she's using Rick's son to get more money while keeping him in a home full of lies. I'm not trying to hurt anyone. But if that kid's gonna grow up with Rick's name, he deserves to know who his father really was and who I really am." The lawyer said we had a shot. Maybe not a strong one, but enough to get a court date. But once I filed the petition, the real war started. 2 days after she got served, Marla called me from a blocked number. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. First calm. Then bitter. Then crying. Saying I was trying to steal her son and destroy what little life she had left. Then came the messages from other people. My cousin Derek texted, "Really? After all these years?" My aunt left a voicemail, "He's not your kid, Drew." They still didn't get it. They never saw it. I wasn't doing this to be a father. I wasn't trying to replace anyone. I just wanted the truth out. But then, something strange happened. Mom called me. She hadn't called in years. She was quiet at first. Then she said, I got a letter from Marla. Said you're trying to take Ryan away from her. I stayed silent. Then she said, is it true? I'm not taking him, I said. I'm protecting him. And Rick's memory. There was a long pause. Then she whispered, good. That one word changed everything. She offered to testify. Said she had texts from Marla from back when Rick died, things that didn't add up. She offered to talk to the lawyer, write a letter for the judge. She said she was sorry it took her so long to see the truth. I broke down crying after we hung up. It felt like something was finally turning in my favor. But I should have known Marla wasn't done. A week later, someone broke into my truck. Didn't steal anything. Just smashed the glove box and took a few papers. I couldn't prove it was her, but it felt targeted. 2 days after that, an anonymous tip was filed against me. CPS showed up at my apartment asking about unsafe living conditions. Said someone reported that I left a child alone for hours. I don't even have a child. It was retaliation. Pure and simple. The CPS worker apologized once she realized it was fake. Said this kind of thing happens during custody battles. I wasn't even surprised. Just more determined. Then, just when I thought I had everything ready for court, I got a message that changed the entire story. An old contact request on Facebook. One I never accepted. It was from Rick. Or more accurately, from an old account of his. I clicked on it. There was a message, dated 2 days before his death. I guess Facebook kept it hidden since we weren't connected anymore. It said, if anything happens to me, promise me you won't let her erase me. She's already rewriting the truth. Please, Drew. Don't let Ryan grow up not knowing who I really was. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I took a screenshot. And I printed it. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about keeping my brother alive in the one place that mattered, his son's heart. But I knew I'd have to burn every bridge to get there. The court date finally came. Family Court, Hamilton County, Room 304. I wore the same dark gray suit I wore to Rick's funeral. I hadn't touched it since. It still had the faintest smell of church pews and lilies. Marla showed up late. She walked in like she was already defeated, hair in a messy bun, eyes red, dragging her feet like it was all a waste of time. Her lawyer was some low-rent guy I'd seen on local billboards for injury claims. She barely looked at me. But Ryan was there too. Sitting in the hallway with a social worker, holding a little action figure in his hand. He looked like he didn't even know what was happening. My chest ached just seeing him. The hearing lasted 4 hours. Marla tried to paint me as obsessed. Said I held a grudge and wanted to take Rick's legacy for myself. She even cried on the stand. Told the judge I was unstable. That I yelled at her. That I threatened her. But I came prepared. I had my lawyer bring out everything. The funeral invoice, the GoFundMe lies, the second fundraiser under a fake name, the voicemail Rick left the lawyer, Travis's signed statement, my mother's texts with Marla from 2019, the fake CPS report against me, and finally, the Facebook message Rick sent me 2 days before he died. I watched the judge as she read that one. Her face changed. I'll never forget what she said after hearing both sides. She leaned forward and said, "This is not just about custody. This is about legacy. This is about truth. And I believe Mr. Drew's involvement in this boy's life is not only appropriate, it's necessary." She didn't take Ryan away from Marla completely. But she gave me joint legal custody. Split decision-making. Visitation rights. Full medical access. I would now have a voice. And most of all, I would now have the truth. But that wasn't all. The judge ordered a financial audit of the GoFundMe money after seeing evidence of how Marla misused funds raised under false stories. Turns out, she spent thousands at spas, weekend getaways, and online shopping. Not for Ryan. For herself. The court froze her accounts. Required repayment. Investigated her for fraud. The state revoked her real estate license. Suddenly, the woman who lied about me for years had nothing left. The family? They turned on her fast. Once the evidence came out, they backpedaled. My cousin Derek sent me a lame apology. My aunt said she didn't know better. June tried to reconnect like nothing happened. I didn't forgive any of them. Not yet. Because here's the truth: when it mattered, they chose silence. And I know what silence costs. Ryan stayed with me every other weekend. At first, it was awkward. He didn't talk much. But I didn't push him. We went to Red's games. Built Legos. I taught him how to grill burgers. He told me he liked my dog more than his mom's cat. That made me laugh. One night, he asked me something I'll never forget. Did my dad like motorcycles? I nodded. He loved them. Your dad was fearless. Then he said, Mom said he crashed 'cause he was reckless. I took a deep breath. That's not true. It was raining. Some idiot didn't check his mirrors. It wasn't his fault. He nodded. Then he asked, did he love you? I smiled through tears. More than anything. That's when I knew I'd done the right thing. As for me, I wasn't innocent either. I held on to rage for too long. Let it rot inside me. I let it control me. But I also didn't give up. And in the end, I kept my promise. I didn't let her erase Rick. I didn't let her rewrite the truth. And I didn't stay quiet. She wanted me silent. Now she hears my name every time she opens a legal document, every time she files taxes, every time she looks at her son and realizes he knows who his father really was. And he knows who I really am. Her lie died the moment the truth walked into that courtroom. And I walked out with my head high,